Today we're going to take a quick look at the modified Arctic front that's going to come into Washington State tomorrow and bring snow to some areas. There already has been snow reported in some areas today, with places like Woodinville reporting accumulations on trees and grassy surfaces. And this is before the Arctic air has even arrived. Looking at satellite imagery, we can see the Arctic air beginning to come into southwest British Columbia. This right here, this is spinning away. This is that Arctic trough coming down. You can also see cooled air spilling out into the Pacific Ocean. And looking at observations from weather stations up there in Canada, look at that up there in the Yukon. It's 24 below zero. Right there on the border of British Columbia, it's 11 below zero. And that colder air is coming deeper and deeper into British Columbia. And tomorrow, the Fraser River Valley Gap is going to get going and start sucking some of that cold air down the I-5 corridor. And also here in the gaps in the terrain of this coastal range, we're going to get some cooler air coming across the Pacific Ocean and back into Washington State. Go ahead and let me know in the comments exactly what you are hoping will happen over the next couple of days. Looking at the NAM3KM here, this morning it didn't really pick up on much of the shower activity that's currently falling as snow in places like North King and South Snohomish County. But as we go through the afternoon, it does pick up shower activity across some of the area, with some of it falling as snow, other areas falling as rain. But then as we go into early tomorrow morning, the Arctic front starts coming down out of Canada and down the I-5 corridor, and the NAM3KM brings some convergent bands down and brings snow to quite a bit of the area. And by Monday morning, this is what the NAM3KM is showing for snow totals, with maybe a couple inches up there in Skagit County, up in Whatcom County, maybe a little bit less in places like Snohomish and King. But the National Weather Service is going for 2 to 3 inches in Everett, maybe a little bit more in places in higher foothills to the east, 1 to 2 inches for places like Mount Vernon, 1 to 2 inches for places like Friday Harbor, 2 to 3 for Bellingham, 1 to 2 for Port Angeles. And I think sometimes these high resolution models can kind of struggle with modified Arctic fronts and show a little bit less snow than what's actually going to happen. So there is a chance that these bands of snow that end up falling tomorrow could end up dropping a little bit more snow than the models are currently anticipating. One model that I think is struggling with this just a bit is the HRRR. The HRRR doesn't show a whole lot of snow falling tomorrow in terms of accumulation. It does show bands of snow developing, but not nearly as widespread as the NAM3KM, and it brings a bit more snow down to places in southwest Washington on the coast. Looking at the European model brings a bit more snow accumulation to places like northern Whatcom County, down through Mount Vernon. It gives about an inch, Everett about an inch, with higher amounts in the foothills, and it actually gives almost 2 inches to places like Seattle. Gives about 2 to 3 inches to places like Sequim and Port Angeles, and a couple inches out to places like Spokane, Omak, and Winthrop could get possibly even more. But I think looking at the National Weather Service's expectation for snowfall is probably a pretty good guess, but it could be more or it could be less. Looking at this trough for Tuesday with Tuesday's potential system, it's still looking possible like that's going to happen. The European is holding on to its solution. It nudged away a little bit from more of an overwater track, but it still has some overwater. The GFS is holding to its guns and is being stubborn. And the Canadian model is in line a bit more with the European model, but nudged itself just a bit more east, but still brings plenty of cold air into the region. So I'm not going to talk a whole bunch about that storm, though. I think on Monday I'll go into more depth for Tuesday's storm. In the meantime, if you are liking this content, go ahead and give this video a like, and also consider subscribing to the channel. I think I'm going to head out there and see if I can see a couple snowflakes falling. Thanks for watching.